The courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale despair. It was a specific scent, one I had grown used to over the last 4 months of hell. But today, the air felt heavier, thicker, like the oxygen was being sucked out of the room by the sheer magnitude of the greed sitting at the plaintiff's table. Vanessa sat there, looking like a mourning widow in a black dress that I knew for a fact cost $3,000 because I saw the charge on the joint account before she froze it. She wasn't mourning, though. She was hunting. Her lawyer, Mr. Blackwood, stood up. He was a shark in a pinstripe suit, a man who charged $600 an hour to destroy lives. He adjusted his tie, looking at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth, practiced. "We are asking for a monthly spousal support of $15,000. My client has suffered enough. She supported this man for 5 years while he tinkered in his basement, playing with computers, refusing to get a real job. She sacrificed her prime years for a dreamer who never woke up." I sat still. My hands were folded on the table. I wore a suit I bought off the rack at a department store 5 years ago. It was slightly tight in the shoulders. I hadn't shaved perfectly. To the world, I looked exactly like what Blackwood was painting me to be, a defeated, unemployed loser. Vanessa dabbed at her dry eyes with a tissue. "I just wanted him to step up, Your Honor," she whispered, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "I worked double shifts at the clinic. I paid the mortgage. And he just sat in the dark, typing. He said he was building something. But bills don't get paid with code." The judge, a stern man in his 60s named Judge Holloway, peered over his reading glasses. He looked tired. He'd probably heard this story 1,000 times. "Mr. Sterling," the judge addressed me. "Your financial affidavit lists your occupation as independent consultant with an income of 0 for the last 6 months?" "That is correct, Your Honor," I said. My voice was raspy. I hadn't spoken much lately. Blackwood scoffed. "See? He's hiding income, or he's simply refusing to work out of spite. He's an anchor, Your Honor. And Vanessa has cut the rope. We are asking for the house, the car, and the alimony. It's only fair restitution for the burden she carried." I looked at Vanessa. She briefly met my gaze. Behind the fake tears, there was a glint of triumph. She thought she had already won. She thought this was the final scene of her victimhood movie. She didn't know the movie was just starting. I let my mind drift back to 3 years ago. The memory was sharp, stinging like a paper cut. I was in the basement, my cave, as she called it. The hum of the servers was the only music I listened to. I had been awake for 36 hours, finalizing the encryption protocol. Vanessa had stormed down the stairs, throwing a laundry basket onto the floor. "Look at you," she had sneered, standing over me. "You smell like coffee and failure, David. My sister's husband just bought a boat." "A boat! And what do we have? A server rack that eats up our electricity bill?" "Vanessa, please," I had mumbled, eyes glued to the screen. "I'm close. This algorithm, it's going to change how data is secured. It's not just a project. It's a toy." She screamed, kicking the chair. "Grow up, David. You're 32. You're not Mark Zuckerberg. You're just a guy wasting his life while his wife pays for the internet he uses to play pretend." She had left me there. And that night, she didn't come home until 3 a.m. She smelled of expensive cologne I didn't own. When I asked her, she said she was working late. I believed her because I wanted to. Or maybe because I was too focused on what was happening on my screen to care. Back in the courtroom, Blackwood was wrapping up his opening statement. "This man is a parasite, Your Honor. He drained her finances and now he wants to walk away scot-free. We demand full financial disclosure of his so-called consulting business. We believe he is hiding assets in shell companies." Judge Holloway sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mr. Sterling, Do you have the documents regarding your business entity? Yes, Your Honor, I said. I reached into my battered leather briefcase. It was old, scuffed. Vanessa rolled her eyes when she saw it. I pulled out a single, thick manila envelope. It was sealed with red wax, an old-fashioned touch, but necessary for the level of security contained inside. I stood up and walked to the bench. Blackwood tried to intercept me. Objection. I haven't seen these documents. This is trial by ambush. It's just the incorporation papers and the P&L statement you asked for, I said calmly. The bailiff took the envelope and handed it to Judge Holloway. The room went silent. The only sound was the tearing of the heavy paper as the judge opened the envelope. Vanessa leaned over to Blackwood, whispering loudly. Watch him claim he makes $50 a month. He's pathetic. Judge Holloway pulled out the document. It was a single sheet of heavy, cream-colored paper with a silver-embossed header. He adjusted his glasses. He read the header. Then he froze. He blinked, leaning closer to the paper as if he didn't trust his own vision. He looked up at me, then back at the paper. His expression shifted from boredom to confusion, and finally, to something that looked a lot like shock. Mr. Sterling, the judge said slowly. This document, this is the holding company for your assets? Yes, Your Honor. And you are the sole proprietor? 100% ownership, Your Honor. The judge slowly lowered the paper. He looked at Blackwood, then at Vanessa. A strange, unreadable smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, his voice dropping an octave. You accuse the defendant of being a parasite? Of wasting his time on, what did you call it? A toy? Yes, Your Honor, Blackwood said, sensing a trap but unsure where it was. The judge held up the document. The silver lettering caught the courtroom lights. The company listed here is Aegis Protocol Systems. Blackwood frowned. I'm sorry, Your Honor? I'm not familiar. But Vanessa gasped. She didn't know the name, but she saw the reaction of the court clerk. The clerk's jaw had dropped. Judge Holloway leaned forward, interlocking his fingers. Mr. Blackwood, Aegis Protocol is the cybersecurity firm that this very courthouse contracted 3 months ago to overhaul our entire federal database. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Department of Defense just signed an exclusive contract with them last week. The judge turned his gaze to me. It wasn't the look you give a deadbeat. It was the look you give a legend. Mr. Sterling, are you telling me you invented the ghost key encryption? I nodded once. I wrote the code in my basement, Your Honor. While my wife was working late. The judge looked back at Vanessa. His face hardened. So, Mr. Blackwood, you are asking for alimony from a man who, according to this valuation, made $42 million last quarter? Vanessa's face went white. Not pale. Dead white. She grabbed Blackwood's arm, her fingernails digging into his suit. 40 million? She choked out. The judge wasn't done. But there is something else here, Mr. Sterling. The judge tapped the paper. There is a second document in this folder. A forensic audit of the household finances? Yes, Your Honor, I said. Since my company secures banking systems, I have access to detailed metadata. The judge opened the second page. His eyes narrowed. Oh, he said softly. Oh, this is very interesting. He looked at Vanessa. The gavel hovered in his hand. Ms. Vanessa, it seems Mr. Sterling hasn't just been coding. He's been tracking. And what he found, well, let's just say your request for alimony is about to become a criminal investigation. The silence that followed the judge's words was heavy, suffocating. It wasn't the quiet of a library, it was the quiet of a bomb squad watching a timer hit zero. Vanessa's face had lost all its color. She looked at the judge, then at me, then at the document trembling in Judge Holloway's hand. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on dry land. Criminal Investigation? She squeaked. It was the first time I had heard her voice without a layer of condescension in 5 years. Mr. Blackwood, however, recovered faster. He was a professional parasite. He smelled blood in the water, not mine anymore, but the money's. He straightened his tie, his eyes gleaming with a new, predatory hunger. "Your Honor," Blackwood interjected, his voice rising with excitement. "If the defendant is indeed worth $40 million, then my client's request for $15,000 a month is woefully inadequate. This is a marital asset. Aegis Protocol was developed during the marriage. Under state law, Vanessa is entitled to 50%. We are amending our claim. We want $20 million. He slammed his hand on the table, grinning at Vanessa. "We hit the jackpot, Van. Don't worry about the investigation. It's just a scare tactic." Vanessa blinked, the fear in her eyes replaced by a sudden, manic greed. She sat up straighter. Yes, that's right. I supported him. I bought him the coffee he drank while he wrote that code. Half of it is mine. I watched them. It was fascinating, really. Like watching vultures fight over a carcass that was still breathing and holding a shotgun. "Mr. Blackwood," I said, my voice cutting through their celebration. "You might want to let the judge finish reading page 3 before you start spending my money." Judge Holloway didn't look up. He was tracing a line on the document with his finger, his eyebrows knitting together in a frown of deep disapproval. "Mr. Sterling is right," the judge said, his voice dropping to a gravelly low. "Mr. Blackwood, you claimed your client worked double shifts to support the household? That she was the sole provider?" "Absolutely, Your Honor," Blackwood said confidently. "She is a saint." "Then explain to me," the judge said, flipping the page so it faced the courtroom, "why Mr. Sterling's forensic audit shows that for the last 2 years, $50,000 was siphoned out of Mr. Sterling's savings account and transferred to an offshore entity in the Cayman Islands." Vanessa froze. Her hand went to her throat. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "David managed the finances. He must be framing me." I stood up slowly. I walked toward the witness stand. "You're forgetting what I do, Vanessa," I said softly. "I don't just secure data. I trace it. Aegis stands for shield, but my proprietary algorithm is called the Hunter. It tags every digital dollar that touches my servers." I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, if you look at the metadata on those transfers, you'll see the IP address they originated from. It wasn't my basement. It was the Wi-Fi network at the Blue Harbor Marina." The judge squinted at the paper. "Confirmed. IP address matches. Salty Dog Yacht Club." I looked at Vanessa. "Who has a boat at the marina, Vanessa?" "My brother-in-law?" "No. He sold his." Vanessa was shaking now, her eyes darting to the exit. "It was Chad, wasn't it?" I asked. "Your personal trainer?" Blackwood looked at his client, horrified. "Vanessa? What is he talking about?" "It's a lie!" she screamed, standing up. "He's hacking the bank. He's making it up." "I don't need to make it up," I said calmly. "Because I also recovered the deleted emails from your phone, Vanessa. The ones you sent to Chad last week." I pulled another piece of paper from my pocket. I didn't give it to the judge this time. I read it aloud. "Just hold on a little longer, babe. The divorce court is going to gut him. We'll have the alimony, plus the stash in the Caymans. He's too stupid to notice the missing 50 grand. He's just a code monkey." I folded the paper. "A code monkey who just built the cage you walked into." The courtroom erupted. The stenographer stopped typing, her jaw open. Even the bailiff looked shocked. Judge Holloway slammed his gavel down. "Silence!" he roared. "Ms. Vanessa, sit down. Now!" She collapsed into her chair, sobbing, real tears this time. Tears of terror. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. Your client filed a sworn financial affidavit stating she had no hidden assets. She stated under oath that she was faithful and the sole provider. This document proves perjury. It proves embezzlement. And it proves fraud. Blackwood was sweating profusely. He began packing his briefcase with trembling hands. Your Honor, I was not aware of these facts. I request a recess to counsel my client. There will be no recess, Judge Holloway said, his eyes hard as flint. We are finishing this today. The judge looked at me. The respect in his eyes was gone, replaced by something else, camaraderie. He knew what it was like to deal with liars. Mr. Sterling, the judge said, since you have access to the banking system, can you tell me the current balance of this offshore account she tried to hide? I can do better than that, Your Honor, I said, pulling out my phone. Since the funds were stolen from my account, my algorithm flagged them as disputed assets. 5 minutes ago, while Mr. Blackwood was demanding $20 million. I tapped the screen and held it up. I initiated a clawback protocol. The Cayman account is now empty. The money has been returned to my primary holding. Vanessa let out a wail of despair. No! That was our future. Chad is going to leave me. And that, I said, looking her dead in the eye, is the least of your problems. Judge Holloway leaned forward, a dark smile playing on his lips. Indeed it is, the judge said. Because, Ms. Vanessa, do you know who prosecutes perjury in this district? It's not me. He pointed a finger at the back of the courtroom. It's the district attorney. And coincidentally, I believe his office uses Aegis protocol for their email security. I'm sure Mr. Sterling can send in these files within seconds. I smiled. It's already done, Your Honor. Sent it as an encrypted attachment 3 minutes ago. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. 2 police officers stepped inside, waiting for a signal. Judge Holloway picked up his gavel. He didn't look tired anymore. He looked energized. Ms. Vanessa, Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, I am going to issue a ruling now. And I suggest you listen very carefully, because it will be the last thing you hear before you are taken into custody. The judge's voice didn't boom. It didn't need to. It cut through the air with the precision of a scalpel. In 20 years on the bench, Judge Holloway began, staring down at Vanessa over his spectacles, I have seen greed. I have seen incompetence. But rarely have I seen such a potent combination of both sitting at the plaintiff's table. He picked up a pen and began writing furiously on the docket. The scratching sound was the only noise in the room. Vanessa was trembling so violently her chair rattled against the floor. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said without looking up. Your motion for alimony is denied. With prejudice. That means you cannot file it again. Ever. Blackwood nodded quickly, wiping sweat from his upper lip. Understood, Your Honor. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am granting Mr. Sterling's countermotion for legal fees. Since Ms. Vanessa admitted to stealing $50,000, and since she has wasted the court's time with a fraudulent claim, she is ordered to pay Mr. Sterling's legal costs. Vanessa looked up, eyes wide with panic. But I don't have any money. You took it back. The account is empty. Then I suggest you sell the designer dress you're wearing, the judge said coldly. Or perhaps ask your friend Chad for a loan. Although, given what comes next, I doubt he'll be answering your calls. The judge signed the paper with a final, aggressive flourish and looked at the police officers standing by the door. He nodded. Officers, the judge said. The civil portion of this trial is concluded. You may execute the warrant for grand larceny and perjury. The 2 officers stepped forward. The sound of heavy boots on the wood floor echoed like a death march. Vanessa scrambled backward, knocking her chair over. No! You can't. Mr. Blackwood, do something. Stop them! Blackwood stood up, but not to help her. He grabbed his briefcase and took a distinct step away from her, creating a physical gap between them. "I am withdrawing as counsel, Your Honor," Blackwood said fast. "I cannot represent a client who perjures herself. It's an ethical violation." "Smart move, counselor," the judge muttered. "You coward!" Vanessa screamed at her lawyer. "You said we would win. You said he was a loser." The first officer reached her. He didn't handle her gently. He pulled her arms behind her back. The metallic click-click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of my freedom. "David!" she screamed, twisting her head to look at me. The mask of arrogance was completely gone. She was just a desperate, trapped animal. "David, tell them to stop. I'm your wife. We built a life together. You can't let them take me to jail." I stood there, watching her. I remembered the basement. I remembered her calling my life's work a toy. I remembered the lonely nights while she was at the marina. I walked over to her. I leaned in close, so only she could hear me. "You're right, Vanessa," I whispered. "We did build a life. I built the Aegis system. And you built a case against yourself." I straightened up and looked at the officer. "She has the right to remain silent, officer. I suggest you make sure she uses it." "Let's go, ma'am," the officer grunted, dragging her toward the side exit, the one reserved for prisoners. "David! I love you! I'm sorry. David!" Her screams faded as the heavy oak door slammed shut behind her. The silence that followed was pure bliss. It was cleaner than the air in my server room. Mr. Blackwood looked at me, gave a weak, apologetic nod, and practically ran out the main doors. I looked up at the bench. Judge Holloway was taking off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He looked at me and smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "Mr. Sterling," he said. "Your Honor?" "The court thanks you for your service to the county's cybersecurity," he said. "And, off the record? That Hunter algorithm is impressive work. My clerk tells me it caught a phishing attempt on my email just this morning." "I'm glad to hear it, Judge," I said. "I'll make sure your license is renewed for free. Consider it a professional courtesy." The judge chuckled. "Case dismissed. Good luck, son." I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. For the first time in years, the light didn't hurt my eyes. It felt warm. The wind on the open ocean was different than the stale air of a courtroom. It tasted of salt and liberty. I sat on the aft deck of the Aegis II, my new 60-foot catamaran. I typed a few lines of code on my laptop, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The satellite internet connection I had installed was faster than anything I ever had in that basement. A notification popped up on the screen. It was a news alert from the local paper. "Update, sentencing in Sterling fraud case." I clicked it. Vanessa had taken a plea deal. 3 years in state prison for embezzlement and fraud. The article mentioned that the prosecution's star witness had been a man named Chad Miller. I laughed out loud. Of course. Chad had turned on her the second the police questioned him about the money laundering. He testified against her to save his own skin. He kept his freedom, but according to the report, his reputation was destroyed. He was working as a deckhand on a fishing trawler now. And Vanessa? She was in a cell much smaller than my basement, wearing an orange jumpsuit that definitely wasn't designer. I closed the article. I didn't feel happy about her suffering. I just felt indifferent. She was a line of bad code that I had finally debugged and deleted from the system. "Mr. Sterling?" I looked up. My new attorney, my corporate attorney, who actually respected me, was standing there with a bottle of vintage champagne. "The acquisition papers are ready to sign," she said. "Google wants to integrate Go's key into their cloud servers. The offer is on the table. $120 million. I looked at the contract. Then I looked at the endless blue horizon. Tell them 150, I said, taking the glass of champagne. And tell them they have to wait until Monday. I'm taking the weekend off. Celebration? She asked. No, I said, clinking my glass against hers. Just enjoying the quiet. It turns out, silence is the most expensive luxury of all. I took a sip. The yacht rocked gently on the waves. I wasn't the guy in the basement anymore. I wasn't the husband who wasn't good enough. I was the architect. And my life was finally running on my own operating system. And the firewall? It was impenetrable.